And we are recording, so I'll go ahead. I could pause it until we start if you want.
Quickly from the last session. That was fantastic, but such a whirlwind. I've got my brain is just buzzing and I'm trying to shift over.
I know.
It's
tricky.
I always get so much though out of this conference. So thank you for putting it on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sumita. I'm glad. I know I feel the same. I wish we had so much more time to just sit and reflect and think, but
time is always that limiting factor.
Exactly.
Anyway, let me say who I am, and then I'm going to hand it over to Johnnie for a little while. So my name is Sumita Jaggar. I work as a teacher supervisor along with Johnnie and a team of fabulous teacher supervisors at UC Santa Cruz. And I'm going to pass it over to Johnnie.
So I also am a supervisor and teacher at the program at UC Santa Cruz. I work with multiple subject student teachers, and Sumita, with all her grand talents, works science and mathematics. So we complement each other pretty well here. So in this session, we're going to be talking about our work with lesson study. Some of you may have visited us in past years. We've been doing this work for a few years now. I'm going to give a little bit of overview in a moment. If we could go to the next slide, please, Sumita. So today, as we go through this, please hold on to this because we'll be circling back to this at the end of the session. So we have a model where we have students involved in setting out cases, and it's all about their talk and their problem solving and their inquiry to better their teaching. So we want you to hold on to this question. Why are we choosing to work with our student teachers in an inquiry discursive model? Now you're going to have the chance to see this in action. We have a few of our great student teachers in video, and you get to see what this looks like to help this inquiry about inquiry. So what we like to do is make sure that you have some sense of the structure of collaborative case inquiry. That's the formal title we give to this. And an example of what it looks like in practice. Along with the theme of this conference, we want to think about the talk itself. I'm going to go into that in a moment, especially after Micah Pollock's talk. So much of this is about student teachers learning how to talk the talk of teachers. And a central piece to this is about equity of voice. So we'll come to that as well. And we want for you to formulate some ideas about what this might look like in your context. We know that the way we go about it is maybe not the way you might have available to you, or you might think you might have some other way to think about it for yourselves. But there might be some core things, some essential ways we go about working with our student teachers, about their practice, about their talk, about their problem solving, about their inquiry, that you might want to find places for in your own practice with your student teachers. So next slide, please. And this is where I'm going to connect with Micah Pollock's talk. Central to our work in this collaborative case inquiry or lesson study is collegial conversation. Essentially, our student teachers are learning how to talk like teachers. They're learning how to talk the talk with peers to get their ideas out and work through discourse, through dialogue about what matters to them. So if we think about Micah Pollock's talk, and it came up a little bit in her debrief of the session she had, the small group. How do beginning teachers learn to talk the talk of teachers? How do they learn to talk about what matters? And if we think about Micah's talk, so much of what they learn to talk about is what other teachers, practicing teachers, decide for them. So in our practice here, student teachers are learning to own the talk for themselves, to talk about the things that matter to them, their own practice. And we hope that's a good start for them, so they don't just necessarily become enculturated to certain kinds of talk in classrooms that are not about equity, not about other things that matter, that they only talk about the things that, what are we doing next tomorrow and what's the next test, all that kind of necessary talk, but the talk that pushes out all the things that Micah was suggesting we might consider. So we think that this work promotes that kind of talk. So there's 3 kinds of talk that you'll notice today. And we want to have incorporated in our own talk when we go to our breakout rooms. Try to think about these 3 frames of talk for your own contributions. And we do this with our student teachers when we do our lesson study. We focus on talk that affirms, talk that acknowledges the worth of another's contribution and builds on what has been said. We have talk that connects one's ideas or experience to something that has been shared. And then lastly, and not first, talk that suggests, talk that gives possible direction in ways that may not have yet been considered. And this is the important part, couched in good intention for everyone. We know that when we look at others' teaching, sometimes we want to make that teaching better, we want to fix it. But all of this is about collegial consideration of making teaching better for everyone. So the last one is just a piece of it. So talk that affirms, talk that connects, talk that suggests. Now we're going to be using this talk in just a minute here because we're going to ask you to visit with each other in small groups. So I think Sumita's going to set that up. So next slide, please.
I hope I'm going to be able to set it up. So I was just looking, and I'm not a co-host, which means I don't have the ability to send you into breakout groups. And I'm wondering if she said she was going to step out and grab a cup of.
No, that was somebody else. Yes, let me make sure you are a co-host here. So, Sumita, yeah.
So what we'd like to do, we're going to put you into groups of 4 in breakout rooms. We're just going to give you 4 minutes, a very short amount of time, just to introduce yourselves. We're going to send you back into those same groups a couple more times today. So our main idea right now is just to get you beginning to talk with each other and having an ability to have a nice working time with each other today.
I'm going to go ahead and make the breakout rooms because I'm not finding the right button. So is that okay? 4 to 5 people, about right, Sumita?
Yes, please. Thank you, Lisa.
So there'll be 9 breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion, Sumita or Lisa? Could you send a note to them with that second prompt? Where are the opportunities for rich talk in your?
I can do that. Yeah, thank you. What?
Those of you that I think are arriving just now, we're just in small groups introducing ourselves to each other for work that we're going to do together later.
Do you want them to also have that second question, though, Sumita?
Sure, that'd be great. I mean, they've got just a few more minutes, so. But yes.
Helen and Bev, if you want to, you could stay here. We could just talk together.
Oh, certainly. Thank you very much. I was
going to just assign you to a room, but yeah, you might as well stay here.
Okay. Thank you, Johnnie, and thank you, Sumita. Johnnie, who are you?
I teach at UC Santa Cruz. I'm a lecturer and a teacher supervisor for mostly working with multiple subject folks.
Okay. You're my twin. Oh, really? I didn't know that. I do the same thing, except that I work at San Jose State, and I grew up in the Watsonville area. And I used to go.
You're going to hear Johnnie and I slide back and forth between using our colloquial term lesson study for what we do, which is how we started. Those of you in math education know that lesson study is a pretty formalized process that's been used here and in Japan. And we sort of adopted it from them, but we're trying to shift over to using collaborative case inquiry because it's not the same thing, and we want to make sure that people aren't confused, but we're still working on our shift to that together. So quick brief overview, because you're going to see it in video and in action. What we do in a collaborative case inquiry is we bring together a small group of student teachers, about 6 to 8, and they take turns presenting Our sessions run for an hour and 2 present every time that we meet. So they present a few times a quarter all throughout the whole year. The presenter prepares in advance and describes their case of teaching to us. So they will have done some prep work, and they talk to us about their strengths and their areas of challenge. And then they set out questions that they would like us to consider, the things that they're thinking about right in this moment. After that, we really spend some time making sure that the peers have an opportunity to connect their experiences, to affirm the experiences of the student teacher. And then once that's done, once we've built that, then they brainstorm what might be some approaches towards answering the question or towards addressing this problem of teaching that the student teacher has set out. Our role, as we call it, I think of ourselves as the facilitators, and our role is to summarize what's been happening so far. It might be to add further questions or prompt further questions to deepen the conversation, but we try pretty hard to stay out of the conversation as much as possible. In the beginning of the year, of course, we talk more, but by the end of the year, the student teachers pretty much run the whole process themselves, and their conversations grow deeper and richer faster the less we talk. That's what we found. The less we talk, it's often the better it goes. At the very end, we put some onus back on the presenter and we ask them to reflect in the moment, to think about what it is that they're taking away from the conversation that we've had together and to share their plan for next steps. We talk about it as giving them their homework for what they're going to do. And this protocol is in a circle because what happens is when they come back a week later, we'll ask them to share, did you try anything from our conversation last week and how did that go? So it's a cyclical process throughout the year.
Thank you, Sumita. So I'm going to share now just the questions from the protocol itself. And I want you to give particular attention to one piece of this. So you'll see the first block is all in green. And this is just a description of the case of teaching. These have evolved over the last 3 years. We've refined our question protocol. We think we're doing much better by it now. There's been some changes over time we might add along in this presentation. But you can see it's about giving a description of the activity, describe how students responded to prompts, etc. You can see the first part, all in green, is very much student-centered. We want our student teachers to be thinking about what their teaching was about how the students lived it and responded to their teaching. It's not just about what they did, it's what students did in response to their teaching. So a lot of that first part is about, so you taught, what happened, what were students doing, and how did you make sense of it? Now, the yellow part in the middle is one of the ones we've added over the last 2 years or so that we've given a lot of attention to. So this is considerations for engaging and teaching all students. The first block of questions, they all come from lessons we learned through lesson study. There have been cases of that have been presented by our student teachers that really pushed us to say, well, where are these questions? We should have questions for these considerations that push everyone. So you can see the first one. How did you work to ensure the talk was equitable? All students had opportunities to share their thinking. That's because we see this a lot in our observations, but our student teachers bring this up a lot too. How are my students, who was talking, who was not talking? How do I make it more equitable? What attention do I give to talk? So that's the first one under equity and access. The second one we give good attention to as well is, how did you attend to status differences to ensure that all students were able to make the most of your teaching? Now you can imagine with these particular questions, going through lesson study again and again and again, they become part of the ways the students think about and talk about equity. They become, part of their repertoire for what they think about and how they talk about things. The last one's a lot about their own teaching. What biases needed to be considered that might have shaped participation? So that's in their planning, things that came up along the way. And to consider the equity considerations, we add UDL considerations at the bottom as well. So all the things about representation and expression, etc. The last part is just the reflection piece. And that was the blue part, but this, yeah, sorry, Sumita. This is the part that generates the questions that will be looked at in the lesson study itself. So the student teacher will set out the questions that will generate the conversation. So the next piece, next slide, please. This is just thinking about the processes and just the kinds of talk again. Throughout this process, talk that affirms, talk that connects, talk that suggests. Hold on to this because the next piece is going to be work for you. We're going to be sharing a case of teaching. I'm going to give it a little context first. This is one of our student teachers, Nicole, wonderful, wonderful student teacher. She was a bilingual candidate. She's working in a dual immersion program, working in Spanish. A good number of her students are Anglo. You need to know the context of the lesson. She's working on a lesson where she's teaching about Spanish grammar and particularly about accents. She's going to present and give you some context for it, but one of the things to pay attention to are her own talk about what she's confident in and what she needs to work on for herself. So the first 10 seconds or so, she's going to talk about just her weekly activity, but then we're going to get into her problem of practice. We like to call it problems of practice. Thank you, Sumita. You need to share sound as well, Sumita?
Thank you. I thought I had done that.
I was a part of a lesson on grammar in Spanish. That was a whole class. I've really just been working with whole class. I haven't done much group work lately.
And then should I skip forward to the next part?
Yeah, that would be good. Okay. So
Here.
yeah, she's going to share her question, and we're going to watch just for a minute or so, a minute, 2 minutes.
This lesson stood out to me because it took longer than I anticipated, even though I had paced it out in my lesson plan, and I felt pretty prepared to teach it. I think some struggles that we had or some struggles that I've been having are maybe trying to find a balance between learning as a class and like being a teacher, because I feel like I've been pretty honest with like my process, and my students know I'm a student teacher and they know like I'm getting ready to take a Spanish test. So we've been doing stuff together. So we really have been learning a lot of these things as a class, and I'm pretty honest with them about it because I think that just makes the learning more genuine. And I like to see them like correct me or be like, hey, like, oh, that doesn't look too great, or I like it when they question the stuff that we're doing in class. So trying to find a balance with learning as a class and also like being the teacher, because it does kind of hinder our like lesson and make things run long. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. I actually took a video of it. And I'm gonna play a little bit of it for you if that's okay.
So we're only showing you a little bit of this. Okay.
I'm sorry, Johnnie. Were we going to share more, or was that we just wanted to know that we shared the video?
That's all. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I couldn't remember that. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. So here you could see me. I first started, I kind of like stuck to my ground. I'm like, no, like this is the rule. But we were looking at a part where it was like, what's the exception to the rule? And I didn't get to finish the whole sentence. And one of my students kind of pointed that out when like I didn't get to finish. And I was talking about the exception. So she got really confused. And then it made me really confused. And I like started to second guess whether or not I had written the template correctly. So I'm like, you know what? I did make a mistake. Let's put a no here. And then like I kept reading and I'm like, no, wait, I'm talking about the exception. So it's kind of like finding that clarification. But it was also like, I also like started to doubt myself, and then it like started to confuse everyone. So I feel like that's where I had a little bit of trouble. Yeah. I don't know if anybody has any suggestions. Yes.
Okay, so there's going to be talk from peers coming up right now. And so if you want to think about the talk that affirms, the talk that suggests, the talk that connects as it comes along. And what we would like you to do is, after you see this portion, is you're going to be in groups again, and you're going to think about the talk. So pay attention to the kinds of talk, and you're going to talk about how peer talk mattered in the following segment. Does that sound right, Sumita?
Johnnie?
Appreciating this very much. I'm just going to say that you've given us a really good case of teaching, because that kind of in the moment, having to figure things out while people are staring at you and you're supposed to know, is one thing that happens to all of us. So I think this is really worthwhile. Thank you, Nicole, for putting this up there for us.
Yeah, no, I was like on the spot trying to figure it out. I'm like, isn't that? I was like so confused. I was like, isn't that, like, I had studied it the day before, and I'm like rereading it. And then like I finally figure it out, but at that point we had lost so much time like trying to like clarify it and stuff. Like we got to a point where like we felt good about it and I clarified it, and like I even set up an example on the board, but we kind of ran out of time to do individual practice. Like we had gotten a clear idea of what the rule was after I had struggled through it and we had like kind of talked about it. But we ended up running out of time. The kids had to go to lunch, so we didn't get enough individual practice. And that also kind of felt like, I mean, I was really happy that like we were able to clarify it and work through it, but it's also like they didn't get that independent practice, and it's like kind of like trying to decide, like, because we have to move on to the next thing, you know. It's like you can't spend too much time on one thing because there's always stuff that we need to move on towards. So I'm like trying to figure out what a good way to balance out like being like learning with the class and also like knowing, or I guess like teaching. I don't know. Fabi?
I feel like what I was thinking was on the same route of what Johnnie was saying, is that it's so real on how that happens to you. And I feel like it was such a good thing that you were open to letting them know that you had a mistake, or at least thought you had a mistake. Because that just shows them that like we can just fix it. Like all you had to do was change it to no, and that would have solved whatever confusion that there was. And I think it's really hard, especially since we're still like making our way into doing this completely independently, is just be generous with yourself. And like, if you need time to think about it, that's okay. Like they're learning, and it's better for them to learn it properly than for you to just be like, yeah, this is it, and then just keep going with it. Because then if you have to go back, it's going to confuse them even more, and it'll confuse you even more. So I think just give yourself that grace también and take that time. But also another thing I wanted to ask, because I mean, my default is also straight to English. If I'm confused or like whatever, I was trying to do my lessons in Spanish the other time, and I feel like naturally I would just go back to English. Have you tried like only talking to them in Spanish during the entire lesson and like not letting them talk to you in English?
Well, here's the thing. Okay. So my default is usually English too. So sometimes like even when I'm reading the lessons, I like try to translate it almost in my brain, but I'm like, that doesn't work. So now when I write my lessons, I like write them in Spanish, because at first it gets me in that mode. Like I have to write them in Spanish now. So I write my lesson plans in Spanish, and I do all the notes that I need to do in Spanish so that I'm thinking in Spanish. And I always encourage the kids, I'm like, okay, it's like a little switch in your head. I'm like, turn on your Spanish brain. But when I'm like, I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to get them to understand something, I kind of switch over to English, or I try to use English to like get their attention. Because I feel like sometimes when I start to speak in Spanish, it's kind of like, ooh, they don't really hear anything. But I'm able to like sometimes grab their attention when I'm able to like speak in English, or if they hear me speak in English. So I'm also trying to find that balance too, because I want to model like, this is Spanish time, this is when we speak Spanish. But at the same time, like English does kind of come into that, because their default is English, and sometimes it will respond to me in English. And it's just kind of like, it really is trying to find that battle. Like like part of the rule was like, I think it was like, en la penúltima sílaba. What does penúltima mean? Because that's not very common to hear in Spanish. So it's like, what does that even mean? What does it mean in English? And it's like, oh, second to last. That's much easier to remember than antepenúltima, because we never use that in Spanish. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about using both or not?
Just a small thing. Just that use of penultimate. I mean, there's the same word in English, but the English speakers wouldn't have known that word. Penultimate is an English word too. So that, you know, you've got double layers going on there. It's a very, very sophisticated word in either Spanish or English. So it was going to catch anybody that way. But it's an interesting word. I'm sorry, other people have things to say. I'm just writing stuff.
That's good. Thank you. Mayan, what do you think?
Hey, Nicole. How's it going? I think that, yeah, it's very challenging because for me, I have the same problem when I'm teaching them in Spanish. So something that I feel has helped me is kind of like before I start the lesson, telling them, okay, we're gonna take off your English hats and put on your Spanish hats. Y vamos a empezar a hablar en español. And so that kind of sets them off to like know that they should practice their Spanish, and it's gonna be normal that they're gonna want to go back to speaking English because that's what they're like used to. So
Johnnie, do you think that's enough, or would you like to watch a little more?
That's a good place to stop for now. So we're going to be moving you into breakout rooms. What we would like you to do, we're going to go to the breakout rooms we started with at the beginning. We want you to pay attention to thinking about the kinds of talk that just happened. Sumita's going to be sharing with you this. Sumita, will you talk them through this, please? I'm sorry, I'm a little lost.
Yes, absolutely. So what we'd like you to do is we're going to put you into your same breakout groups for about 10 minutes. When you go into your breakout group, you know how it tells you at the top what group you're on. That's going to be the same as your Jamboard group. So what we've done is put group 1 on slide 1 and group 2 on slide 2. Can you give me a thumbs up if you feel like you've done Jamboards before, you're familiar with them? Okay, great. Thank you. There'll be at least somebody in each one. And then what we'd like you to do is have a conversation and post your notes about where do you see examples of the kinds of talk that we've been sharing with you, and how did the talk move the thinking of the student teachers as they engaged in this. I see 2 people with hands raised, and I asked for a thumbs up, but do you have a question, Michelle or Rebecca? Or it's just a thumbs up? Okay, thank you. All right, so Lisa, if you don't mind opening those sessions again, we're going to give you just under 10 minutes, I think.
Thanks, I just opened. 10 minutes. Okay.
Got to see some suggestions, a lot of affirmations. You could see that the affirmations were so easy for the student teachers to give each other. They do build community through this process too, which is one of the goals of our lesson study. I wanted to respond to one prompt here in the yellow, so I really appreciate this one. This is from group 6. What would the facilitator do if the student teacher did not see challenges with the lesson? How would a student teacher who sees good respond to suggestions? So the first part, Sumita and I have had interesting interactions about over the course of the year. We had one particular case where a student teacher was sharing responses to some behaviors things in the classroom, and it was like, for Sumita and I, it was not okay, the ways in which the student teacher was responding to it. Very kind of punitive, very kind of narrow, not restorative, none of the things we might want. And then what happened, because our student teachers are beginners, some of them suggested the similar things. They would go down that road. And so our role as facilitator then was to ask the question, give a prompt, to shift the thinking, not to give them the thinking, but to ask them a question that would shift where they were with that proposition. And that's facilitator, we do have a role. It's not just talk about teaching however you want. We're the ones who are trying to set it out in a framework that moves them to very worthwhile ways to teach as well. So Sumita, shall we move to the next piece? What we're going to do now is show you the very end of the video. And this is where Nicole is taking up what was offered by her peers. And this is her response. So it's a synthesis. Now, what you see here, as far as my role, as I said just now, my role is to synthesize the conversation and to add prompts along the way to redirect if it's useful. But I was taking these notes the whole time. This was my job. So I wrote all this down while everybody else was talking. And you can see I name the people who are doing things. I make sure there's strengths, things to focus on, etc. So Nicole's going to speak about what she's taken away from this case that she's presented to her peers.
I know. I mean, yeah, I've been practicing my Spanish too, and I've been telling them, like, you guys, I'm gonna have this test, and that's actually been motivating them a little bit to want. They're like, oh, maybe we could do that in Spanish instead. Like, we usually do math. They're like, oh, maybe we could do math in Spanish instead. Like, my son needs to practice. Yeah, I think what's really been helping too is like standing my ground and like responding back to them. Like when they speak to me in English, it makes me feel uncomfortable almost, but yeah, like sticking my ground, like, and responding back in Spanish, even though they've given me English. Because like once I hear like English, like I feel like I want to spit back English. But yeah, like Mayan's right, I need to stand my ground, and like I think that's really gonna help if I'm able to respond back in Spanish to like kind of incite and like tell them like I want you to respond to me in Spanish. I also really appreciated the pair share tip to like kind of buy me some time a little bit. Because it is a little bit, sometimes it's like I'm so like nervous. I'm like, oh my God, they're all looking at me and waiting for me to like be able to like understand this and explain it to them. So I'm like more focused on that than actually seeing what's going on. So that was really helpful. And yeah, I mean, just thinking about everything.
Thank you, Sumita. So you can see that Nicole has taken up from her peers all the good ideas, and she's making good sense of them for moving her teaching forward as well. So should we move to the next piece, Sumita?
Yes. So what we're going to do now is put you into breakout rooms again. And what we'd like you to do is think through, what did you see in this video? We know we've spent a reasonable amount of time in our session on this video. We wanted you to see the sort of like the messiness of it all. But our opening question was, why are we doing it this way? What is the good of interacting with our student teachers this way? And so we'd like you to shift through to the next section on the Jamboard. It's down there in slides 11 and on. So that's where it starts again. And we'd like you to have a brief conversation about what are you taking away from this case of student-teacher inquiry, and what are some of the benefits that you see. And we're going to give you about 6 minutes. So we're sorry about the technology issues before, but thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for opening those groups. So I think you're probably, yeah.
Hi, Drina. We had good interactions last year and the year before, I think.
Yes, we did. I love your sessions, Johnny. I was taking the next group, but can you put me in my group 7? I don't know how to get in there. Thank you, Johnny. Great. And Sumita, great conversations.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, hi, Drina. Let's see.
I was in room 7.
Okay. You, I don't see let's see. Trying to find you here.
Can I put myself somehow?
Just trying to think. I don't see an unassigned person, but I see you here.
Okay, I see join breakout room. Let me see if I can. Oh, there it is.
Okay, great. Yeah, I didn't see you.
Enjoy your peers. I think we're doing okay, Sumita. We're not jamming it too. We're not smashing it all together. This is a good way to pull it together at the end.
It says room 3 asked for help.
Okay, do you want to put me in that
Yeah,
room?
let me put you in room 3.
Oh, I probably should have given them the link to the Jamboard again.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Where are you? This is weird. I'm not seeing you on my list of participants.
I'm in breakout 4 is what I was.
Yeah, you're not here on mine.
Not even 4.
Yeah. Weird. Sumita.
I'm just throwing some things out there that I'm seeing. Position student teachers as competent.
Mhm.
Student teachers learning to collaborate with colleagues.
I'll join room 4 just to see.
Thank you, Lisa. No, room 3. Yes, really like group 2s.
See some good things on group 2. Yeah. So given our time, the last thing we wanted to do was to imagine some taking it away for themselves.
Mhm.
To have space for that, what do you think?
Well, when I was put into a breakout group, the people in the breakout group that I dropped into, they were having a conversation about how contexts are different in different places. And so it was exactly the conversation that you and I sort of anticipated.
We need to bring that one up when we come back. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think we'll have time to put them in breakout groups again. So maybe what we do is we put them on the spot and say, we totally understand that our particular context can work in this way. And maybe you want to do that and then ask them to suggest ideas in the chat, or do you want me to?
Did we have
What we have coming up is affirm and connect to something you find.
I don't think we have time for that.
Not affirm and connect. I agree. I don't think we should do that. I think we should instead do. So it's right here. If you have time, what might you take? So that's the part that we want to hit right now, right? When they come back.
Which one are you looking at? Oh, the bottom one. If you have time. Okay. I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'll do it because I'll be talking.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask them.
I'm sorry, Sumita. Yeah. A suggestion.
Yes, please.
To take 2 or 3 of these things to amplify some of the things that you've already said, like you saw something on group 2s.
Yes, I'm just reading them right now to find the ones I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this is like, what is it, the 5 steps, whatever.
Yes.
So, but that thing about centering the students as the ones who consider their work and work it through. Anyways, you'll figure it out. You know you'll know which ones to do.
Yeah, but now I need Lisa to come back and close the breakout groups.
I like this.
Good, perfect timing, Lisa. Can you start that 1-minute closure of the breakout?
Yes.
I'm liking.
It was interesting. They just couldn't have they didn't have access to the Jamboard, and I gave it to them at the last minute, so they're probably going to be a little.
Yeah. Here's a little gift. The thought process and depth of conversation is deeper because of the interaction of the students and collaborative approach.
Which one are you on, please?
5. There's some really good stuff here.
Yes.
This is good. I'm feeling like we did okay, Sumita.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just having students give feedback to each other, I think, is in that specific targeted way.
Can we also push Sumita the idea that it's their inquiry, it's their choice, and that's, you decide. That's all good.
put so many fantastic thoughts and ideas into the Jamboard. If you haven't had a chance to flip through and see what other groups contributed, we really do want to suggest that you do that, because we're going to highlight a couple of them now, but there's, you know, time is always that constraint. And so have a look at what other people said. One of the things that we really appreciated was this one on group 2. So positioning student teachers as the experts, it allows them to sort of take some agency over the work that they're doing and thinking about what their agency is as they move into this new context of teaching on their own. We really are trying to build people who are ready to not just do what they're told and check a bunch of boxes, but really want and see that they have power in a situation, which can often feel pretty powerless. I wanted to point out one on group 5, that they're building this deeper conversation through their collaborative approach. So we're really getting them to do that, and that they're solving these problems and working through these problems on their own. We appreciate that a lot. We also really see that there's value in the student teachers bringing their own problems of practice to us. So it's their inquiry and their problems that we're working to solve. Thank you, Lisa, for adding something in the chat for us. So we have a pretty short amount of time left. And one of the things that Johnnie and I talked a lot about as we were preparing for this is recognizing that we're in our own specific context. We have these specific roles that we fulfill at UC Santa Cruz, which enable us to do this work in this way. And we absolutely get that this process is not necessarily available to everybody else, or wouldn't even be the right fit for you in your context. And we think that having these deep, open, rich conversations is incredibly valuable. And so one of the things that we wanted to ask you for is if you could think about what aspects of this process might work in the context of your teaching and your work with student teachers. And if you could share that in the chat, and especially we'd like you to share it also because other people might be like, oh, I really want to do this in my teaching, but I don't see how to fit it in. And so your ideas might enable them to have some ideas for themselves. So if you don't mind having a quick thought about what aspects of this work you would see building into your practice or you're already doing in your practice of having these conversations and how that works in your context to spurn ideas for other people, that would be really helpful.
I'm just going to add a little bit, Sumita. So just going to the essential idea being, and this is what you wrote in the Jamboard, how do you get to those deep conversations? How do you center the questions that matter to the student teachers? How do you put them at the center of the talk about their teaching rather than it's always about somebody else? So a couple thoughts were, you know, even within triadic dialogue with a cooperating teacher and your student teacher, how do you put the student teacher's questions at the center of it rather than some protocol you have to complete? How do you have groups of teachers working at the same site come together and have some kind of collaborative dialogue too? So there's ways to take the essential pieces of what we're doing here, centering student teachers' questions, their inquiry, their problems of practice. How do we find ways to put those into lots of different places within our work with them? Liking what people are writing. The other thing to put out there is that we've been doing this for a couple of years. We know that a couple institutions are already doing forms of this. State schools and another UC have been doing this kind of activity. They're doing it in ways that matter to them, that fit their context. And so they started with ideas that we set out. We're grateful for that, but they're making it work for them. We want to be clear that we're available. If you wanted us to come visit or you wanted some virtual meeting, your institution just wanted to connect with us and say, we're thinking about this, Sumita and Johnnie. Let's think about this together. It doesn't have to be this form, but at the heart of it all, we are as much as we talk to our student teachers about student-centered instruction, we're having student-teacher-centered instruction doing this way. We're centering what they care about, what matters to them, all the things we keep pushing out for them to consider for their own work with students. We're doing this for our student teachers too. This is about you and the things that you consider for your teaching. And that's why we've been doing this. And we've gotten so much good work out of it over the last couple of years.
I feel like I also want to add that the experience has been so powerful working with our student teachers that we brought it into our supervision small groups. And we do this exact same sort of process when we meet with our group of supervision of teacher supervisors once a month. And it's so valuable, and I've learned so much. It is now 11:01. Thank you for the comments that you've made in the chat. Do take a chance to read through them to see what might be helpful to you as you're thinking about moving forward from this, and really do reach out to us. We want to continue talking and building and working together. Thank you for coming to our session. Lisa has also put in the chat the links for the next sessions, which start at 11:10. So you get a short break then to do that. I'm actually going to stick around and keep reading the chats a little bit.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Johnnie. That was wonderful.
Thank you all. I'm here for a short conversation too, if anybody wants to say a few